this is episode 6. Second episode since we finished the book, because the last one was about the movie. Now, you can look at your phone. The movie film. We've watched episode 1 of the Cock episode, Day of the Jackal.
Yeah.
The not book. I like having the book here and just being like,
well, you get a little stand for it.
Here. This is where it all started, where it all began. You want me to go through a summary?
I think it would be best if you summarized it. Yeah.
To me.
Having the distinct advantage of watching it.
Twice. I did
Double
go
the
back
amount of
and watch
times.
it. And I did it for a couple reasons.
Okay, sure.
Let's talk about those before I even get into the summary.
Okay.
To me.
Yeah, to me.
One, I wasn't paying attention the first time I watched it.
What were you paying attention to?
I believe we were talking a lot, which is reminiscent of why we're doing this thing that we're doing.
Okay. Uh-huh. And then second?
I was drunk. We had done a fantasy draft for the postseason, and then we came home. So there were a couple beers, and then we had a couple beers here.
And you were thinking about your draft.
And I was thinking about my draft, which I was super excited about. Now I'm not so excited about as the playoffs have played out.
At the time you thought you drafted well, but
Yep.
it turns out you drafted
I drafted
poorly.
bad.
Yeah. So
At
this
the time I was happy.
This ep you're going to be dialed in.
I'm dialed in. I'm ready to go. Also, it was the end of the night because we had watched the games of Squid, 2 eps.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
With my wife.
Yeah.
And that meant we finished more beers. And so it was the last episode of the night, which is the least paid attention to of any of them, especially because we got talking about football. We got talking about the Jackal of Days. We got talking about the games of Squids. So I immediately the next day said, I'm going to have to rewatch that. And I rewatched a half of it. And then I rewatched the last 15 or 20 minutes, the part that I definitely missed the most before you got here this evening. So, summary. It all starts with our friend the Jackal, who I think the directors maybe thought you wouldn't recognize at first. Because they put a bunch of makeup on him.
Pretty hard to
disguise
Eddie Redmayne.
Yep. He was dressed as an old janitor, an old German janitor. He busts into a business building, a building of business, and he shoots some people. Kills a couple of them, and then shoots a guy who is clearly his quote-unquote target in the leg. Narratively, they let on that he purposely didn't kill the guy. Though in the TV show, it makes it seem like that he missed, essentially. But it's pretty obvious in the TV show, or to us as the viewer, that he could have killed this guy in the stairwell and doesn't kill him. Then it cuts to said target's father going to visit him in the hospital, and our Jackal, from a very long distance of 1,500 meters, I think. I probably should have written that part down. A record-setting distance for a sniper. Shoots the guy through a rotating revolving door in the hospital.
Oh, yeah, that was dope.
That was dope.
And
it was very cool to see the delay of him pulling the trigger and how long it took for the bullet to hit. That was cool. I obviously have some notes, but we'll get into the notes. I'm going to try and finish my narrative. Then we get introduced to our quote-unquote good detective, who knows the most about snipers and finagles her way into a meeting about said German sniper and gets put on the team searching for this person. Says she knows of a Northern Irish gunsmith who has been working on a gun barrel that could be 2 pieces, which is the quote-unquote holy grail of an assassin, which I don't I think there's a little bit of fluff to that component.
Why stop at 2?
But we did see that when he fled this hotel that he was staying in that was super far away from where he shot this German politician, this German far-right politician, he was able to get his gun out in a suitcase, and the suitcase was the component of the gun, which again, we'll talk about some notes and how that relates to the book. But they know he fled with the gun, but they don't know where it is, and she explains, because she's the good detective, that there's no way that the gun is in that bag unless it's broken down, because the barrel would be longer than the bag is.
Sure. But you said it was the gun was split in half, so
Yes,
that does
that
It
changes
wasn't- it was in the
changes
bag.
some
It
things.
changes the calculus, as they say.
Our hashtag good detective goes to talk to one of her contacts, who is a woman, and she is married to a gentleman who is the brother of said gunsmith. She applies some pressure to her and says, hey, by the end of today, I'd like you to tell me how I can get a hold of Norman. And Norman is the gunsmith that she's looking for. And our target was not very receptive to this, but she said, I will put you back in prison if I don't hear from you ASAP. Then we go back to our friend the Jackal a little bit. He sits in a internet cafe, gets contacted by someone looking for another job to be done. They use some very specific words and some verbiage and some language, but essentially they say, I'm going to pay you an S ton of money, but I need to meet in person. And the Jackal's like, that's not something I do. But then over a period of time, he's convinced with enough down payment, essentially, that he will meet them in person to discuss this job. That meeting happens in a duck hunting area of Switzerland. I think that sounds right. Switzerland or Sweden. Anyway, somewhere he sets up this meeting. It's not too important. What is important of all of it is that
it's an SW country.
no, is that in this show they do what they did in the book and they do what they did in the movie, which is they go all over Europe, and it's clear that they are shooting in all sorts of different places, and I think that's very cool. Mm-hmm. But again, we'll get back to that. Then, so he meets with this person. She says, hey, this is who I want you to kill. It happens to be this, not a politician, but a tech mogul who I believe kind of owns an internet news site and has been applying some pressure to some people, and they want him dead. I think there's some more implications to that we'll find out later. But he basically says, multiply what you say you want, multiply by 10. Like, what you've offered me is not nearly enough. You need to multiply this, and I want half up front and half in time. And then the person says, I don't know if I can do that. I'll need to talk to some people. And he's already gone, because he's like, I'm not going to have a conversation about this. This is my offer. I'm out of here. And they never actually talk face to face. She's always looking the other way the entire time. He makes that very clear that she's not to look at him. And then we see him shortly afterwards meet up in a Spanish villa, which I have come to think is his. They don't make that 100% clear, but he seems very comfortable there. Mm-hmm. And his quote-unquote wife or significant other or partner is there. And she's cleaning up some child toys, which makes me think that they have a kid. My initial feeling when I first saw that, which I'll get back to later, was that she was actually like a nanny and that was somebody else's place and he was visiting there. But he later gets really comfortable in there and is sitting, like he unlocks an office and sits down and types into his VPN, assassin network to have a chat. And that's where the episode ends, where he's chatting with his previous contact who had hired him to kill this German dude, this German far-right politician. And he says, hey, you still owe me $2.5 million. And the response from the other person is, fuck you, which makes him go, huh. So I think we're going to get a little bit of a revenge tour in the following eps. That's the part I entirely missed the first time we were watching. The episode ended with that. But the guy basically said, "Hey, I'm not going to pay you your money." While that was going on, our hashtag good detective decides, how can I apply pressure to my contact who knows Norman? And so he says, where's my lady's daughter right now? And they're like, well, she's involved in some far left politics, aka sitting in a street and protesting, because that's what far left politics are these days, are peacefully protesting, I suppose.
We love
interrupting traffic.
We love it. We love standing somewhere and saying, you shouldn't do that.
That's what we do. So they find her protesting, I believe, pollution of a stream or a river or something, and they provoke her into an arrest for disturbing traffic, essentially. They arrest her, and she's like, I want to talk to my solicitor, aka a lawyer. That's a very British term for a lawyer. And they go, you can talk to your mom, because they're trying to get her to, of course, call her mom to basically give them a, hey, your daughter in trouble. You need to come and talk to me about how you know Norman the gunsmith, or how I can find Norman the gunsmith. Now, this does not play out well for her, because all of a sudden we get a medical emergency, and her contact's daughter is having a heart attack, if you will, a cardiac event, they call it. They put her in an ambulance, they rush her off to the hospital, and during this time, her heart stops, and the last we see of them is her trying to resuscitate her in an ambulance. The detective is giving her chest compressions, and the EMT in the ambulance is giving her shocks. What do you call that with the paddles?
Surprises.
Little electric surprises. And it does not seem to be working. Now, I don't know how that's going to play out in the second episode. I have a feeling she might be dead, though, which would be a big mistake on her part, I think.
To die?
No, to be applying, not on the woman dying, but to be like, hey, we're just going to arrest your college-age daughter to apply some pressure, and then they kill her on accident, if you will. Yes. How's that sound?
I think it sounds great.
Do you remember that? Do you want to add anything to it?
I'm glad you got all the facts. I've got all the vibes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's hear your vibes. I talked a lot, so I'd like to hear.
The vibes are going to be...
Before I get to my notes, I'd love to hear how you felt.
So a lot different from the book. Certainly conceptually all there. We got the assassin who's zip-zapping around, but we don't have they're changing the backstory.
Yep.
Him shooting in through the revolving door and doing the whole, that bit is essentially a find and replace for the Egyptian campaign that put our assassin on the map, I'm assuming.
Sure.
Having not watched ahead.
I do feel like they mixed a lot of that and the end of the book together. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they have ordered it much differently. In the book, we talked about how we don't really get to Claude until page like 100 or something.
Yeah.
Like the first 100 pages is all.
But I mean, even this first assassination that happens feels a lot like the book, like his gun that he puts together. Yes. He's got this hidden thing. That's all like the book, and they're almost like starting from the end of the book as if.
But the end of the book, the gun was in like 4 or 5 pieces. This is only
there was
2.
1 barrel though, but yes.
So there
were much more pieces than 2. He puts that whole suitcase together. He has the little magnetic trigger. There's tons of pieces to it, but it was the importance, the distinction is the barrel.
Well, they better come up with some wild something or other for the finale then. If they're gonna blow their wad this early.
Sorry, continue your vibes. I didn't mean to interrupt your vibes.
Shot on location was I mean, presumably, I don't know, but it looked like it was.
It definitely seemed like they were
was
going to
beautiful.
a lot of
Wonderful
different,
drone
wonderful,
shots,
beautiful locations. Yep.
Zip zapping around the different sceneries. It looked fantastic. Do we buy Eddie Redmayne as the Jackal? He seems he's a wonderful actor. He was doing the part very well. Does he have the gravitas?
I buy him as a different version of the Jackal. I don't think he has the same international playboy-esque that they kind of make him off to be, where he is this what's the word? He's very magnetic, has a magnetic personality. I don't think he has that same.
He is, but they never show that in the book as being the case. They just show the results of that.
Yeah, I think they show a little bit of it when he has his conversation with the lady, the Duchess, when he kind of sits down with her.
Which part? They kind of skip
when
ahead
they have
through
coffee,
all the
though.
courtship.
I think they skip ahead in the movie. I think in the book there's actually quite a bit where they sit down and have coffee and they have this long conversation that kind of leads to this thing later.
I don't think in the book there's ever like that point where he gives that smooth line where you're like, oh, this guy fucks. No,
I don't think there's enough
it's just a
actual
fast
dialogue for that,
forward
but maybe
into-
there is a little bit of that. That's fair, but I feel like Eddie Redmayne plays off this. He has a feel to him, but it doesn't have the same like Henry Cavill. I'm drooling at this person's existence.
He doesn't have the necessarily the build for it, but he's a wonderful actor and he's certainly a stage presence. So I'm interested to see how that evolves during the course of the show. He looks and carries himself different from the Jackal that I was picturing in the book.
He doesn't have the same confidence that I think the Jackal in the movie and the book has, but he does have. I think they did a very good job in that opening scene where he's practicing the janitor's voice from what he's recorded. Mm-hmm. I think that makes a very good impression of him trying to do this, impose himself into this character that he's trying to impersonate. So it shows the like professionalism part of the Jackal. I just don't think he has the charisma. That's the word I'm looking for. The charismatic personality that the Jackal is supposed to have, I think, if you will. The swagger that this other character has. And I don't think he should try to, because I don't think that works for him.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting discussion because the swagger isn't even written into.
No, I think it's implied a lot of the time.
The swagger is
I'm
entirely
going to look back,
implied.
and the next time we talk, I'll look back and see that. I'm going to go back to that tea and coffee conversation because I think I agree with you. I think they do shortcut a lot of it, but I think there's a little bit more there than you remember.
We're left to fill in the gaps with all of our experience watching James Bond movies, etc. All of the archetypes of the smooth, suave spy personality.
Yep. And they definitely in the movie shortcut all of it. They're just like, and they're making love. Yeah. Okay. Some notes I had. Some of this from a rewatch, some of it from the first watch. When they go to the janitor's place and he's typing on, or he's talking on, or he's listening to the recording of his voice, and they show the actual janitor in his couch knocked over, the janitor's place is like all disheveled, as if there was this huge struggle, which I understand the implication to do that. They're like, hey, he obviously killed this janitor, right? Did the 80-year-old janitor really put up a fight for this professional assassin? Like, that rang really untrue to me seeing it the second time, where I'm like, so he shows up at this janitor's apartment and he has a hard time killing this like 80-year-old smoker.
He's got any weapon that he could possibly want,
which I'll actually cut back to a little bit later. But I thought it was cool when he was checking the wind on his phone. He was getting like a wind forecast for a sniper shot. The theme song feels very Bond. Do you feel like this is kind of the anti-Bond though, as where he's the bad guy? I feel like there's kind of that position where he's the.
Yeah, I mean, Bond is going to be the first thing that we're going to compare any.
And Bond is also
too.
Bond lives the luxurious life, but he doesn't actually get paid like he's working for the government, right? So he's the poor.
He's on the best expensive.
He is.
Report. I don't think he's poor.
That's fair.
I think he's.
I thought it was interesting that clearly he set
so many bags of money just lying around that he grabs in the enemy's lairs,
right next to the shark lasers. He does all of this effort to get the father to visit the hospital. Is it really that hard to pinpoint this far right politician? Like, I feel like he's probably doing public speeches that if he's doing this shot from 1,500 meters or wherever this distance is, there are other opportunities for this.
So you're saying you wouldn't do both the convoluted plan and the very difficult
I think
shot.
if he's his professional,
you would try and isolate and just do one of those two.
Yeah. When he sets his scope, he's like live setting it at the time, and he shoots the building 2 times. I was a little curious that no one heard the gunshots. They have all these snipers on the roofs in the area.
Yeah.
Granted, he is very far away. And then my other thought was, like, what if the scope's so far off that you shoot the window? He wasn't, like, his first shot was, like, meters off from where his target was.
I assume he does a little bit of tuning before he goes. And then, same thing with a concert.
Yeah,
they come out and they tune their guitars. It's not for the first time. They tune them and then they walk on, and then they've got to tune them just a little.
The conditions are a little different. Okay, I'll buy it. That initial assassination attempt, or the non-assassination attempt, where he just shoots the son. He doesn't seem like a great killer. He seems like a good soldier, was the note that I put down for that whole scene when he's in the, like, he gets surprised constantly by the security and some other people who keep showing up, and he kills them very quickly, but it doesn't make me feel like he actually planned that piece of it out. But I guess maybe that's the whole point. It was supposed to look a little bit sloppy, but it definitely felt like he didn't actually plot for how well he plotted out the actual shot that kills this guy. It doesn't feel like he actually plotted out that piece of it very well.
Yeah, when we were watching it, there was a little bit of a is this guy really good at his job type of feel, and I think that comes back to the Redmayne discussion in the first place. Do we buy him as the Jackal? So I don't know. Was that staged for the purposes of setting up the second kill? That's interesting. We may find out in episode 2.
I actually really like that they shot this in widescreen. I don't often have like ideas about aspect ratio, but I think it actually, the widescreen plays well for this TV show. It makes it seem, especially when they do, like you said, those drone shots and a couple other things where they're showing off, like the city when they shoot over when he shoots the German guy in the hospital.
Oh God, it looks great. That's what I said I want.
Yeah.
I want to fly the drones everywhere, go to all the different cities.
Yeah. Great note. Is blowing up the hotel room a little much? Because he like C4s the hotel room he's in. And to me, what I think bothered me about that was that the only guy who kind of figured out where he was somebody with the big binoculars. And it was also, but even that makes me go, this shot was so far away that people would doubt themselves. So is it really helpful to like immediately blow up the room when they could spend weeks trying to actually figure out and plot where the shot was from? Not, well, this room done blowed up immediately afterwards, so that's probably being covered up there. Oh, this is important. UDC, the guy he's being hired to assassinate for $100 million or 10, they offer him and he wants 100. They're developing software that will track where money goes. So that's a big deal because it's probably the person hiring them is probably a bad billionaire who does not like the idea that they have a way to just like basically track all the flow of money. So that's the part I think when I went back and saw that is important to the plot of why they want this guy dead, not just that he owns a social media company. They have that whole German-French border scene where he like gets his chessboard looked at. And they're all stopping everyone because this assassination had happened recently. I don't know if you've driven around Europe.
I have.
There aren't really borders like that.
No.
And so I'm a little bit curious if they're like, where was this German-French border where they actually have guards that stop? Because they had all sorts of. It looked like a toll area almost, where they like. It looked like a U.S.-Canadian border, and I don't know Europe that well, but all the driving I've done in Europe, you just drive from one country to the next, and that's it. There's no like. You don't get stopped somewhere.
What year is this supposed to be set in?
I think it's present time. I don't know why it would be anything other than that. But I would like. I'm not saying that as I know I'm right, but I'd be interested to find out if there's actually some sort of border crossings between, or maybe they just set it up. When I watched the credit scene, I could already tell that the cops felt too militant versus the book. Like the book, everything the cops do for the most part is very boring cop work. And that's what makes it kind of interesting in my mind. There's a little bit of like, they hire the mob to do the stuff. And there's a little bit of like, I have the power, so I'm going to bug everybody's windows. But they're kind of very restrained about everything they do. And if you watch that credit scene, there's a lot of like, this woman who's our detective replacement, I believe, already holding like machine guns and hiding behind corners and things like that. And I think that's a little weird and what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say untrue to the book, but it feels not natural to the book. It doesn't feel
authentic, or
that's the word. It doesn't feel authentic to the book or what made the book interesting, which was very much like the boring cop work of it is what solved the case, right? Or the like tenacity of it, but not the like gung-ho Rambo version. Like it wasn't I'm breaking the rules and that's how I solved it. It was very much like the most breaking rules that he did was like the Good Old Boy Network where he like called
bugging
people.
Everybody.
Yeah, but even that was like he wasn't
tame.
breaking the rules.
Yeah.
He was just like, I'm going to use the power I've been given. Right. That felt very like...
It wasn't a physical exertion of authority.
It hasn't happened yet. This is only what I got from the intro scene. But I definitely felt like the intro credits felt very much like... And maybe they're just trying to sell the excitement of it. But it definitely was like very Americanized in the like... We need a... we need a diehard character to make this work. The suitcase tube work was pretty cool. Obviously, that was... I think it's interesting that they cut to the chase in the TV show from what the book all builds to is like all of that stuff. And I think it's the book or the TV show separating itself and being like, I'm not redoing the book. I am building on it. Yeah. This is the note I'm not 100% sure about. I wrote, why does the screen always look so fake? And I think what I'm talking about is when they bring up, they're driving the far right guy around and they always have screens like around the city plazas and things like that. And it always looks so fake to me. It always looks like someone photoshopped it in. But that's all I remember. Obviously, it was important to me at the time, but
Sure.
It's not that. Doesn't seem that important to me.
Okay.
Period. The 2-part barrel being impossible thing. As someone who minored in manufacturing engineering, I don't think it's that impossible.
Yeah. And as a guy with super glue in my cabinet, I agree with you.
I just, yeah, I'm not a gunsmith. I'll talk to my gun friends because I do have gun friends, and maybe they'll completely disagree with
gun,
me.
You cut it in half, you glue it back together, you break it back apart. What?
But I mean, you could take material. If I were to do it, I'd take my material. I would already cut it in half and attach it back together, and then you do your bore.
Cut it in thirds. Really throw them off.
Anyways, I don't buy it, but I'm in it for the theory of it, and I do know that gun barrels have to be very accurate. I do understand that they have to be boring has to be done super well.
Bad podcasting if I Google, can you cut a gun in half?
No, go for it. You and I both agreed on this. He spent way too much time in that computer cafe.
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to be this professional assassin, and they make him wait for hours. They're just like, stand by, and he's like, sure, I'll wait in the place that I'm talking to you on this private network. Like, that just felt so. I'm calling you on the phone, and we're tracking you. Like, that felt absolutely stupid in my mind that someone would stick around for that. That part I don't get at all. I thought it was interesting. I had to look it up. It's superlative remuneration was what they type in. That's the message the person sends him, which basically means it's the highest pay available for your work. So essentially what they're saying is that, like, this job is the highest you'll ever get paid. So I had never heard that term before, and in my head I heard superlative remuneration, but it's remuneration apparently. But essentially it's just the highest pay available for whatever position you're in. So it would be like Elon Musk for CEOs, essentially. But that's what caught his attention, was like, I'm going to pay you a ton of money. I thought it was interesting that the hashtag good detective lied about having a husband and a child to when she's in the store talking to her contact. At the end, the lady goes like, do you have a husband? Do you have a child? And she says no to both, when we know that she has both. And she pegs her. She says, it's interesting because she says, I definitely pegged you as a career woman, so that makes sense. Which we find out later, she absolutely is a career woman. She just sacrifices all of that. It doesn't matter to her, or at least that's what you kind of get from the end, where she has a little conversation with her daughter and is like, I'm sorry I missed the parent-teacher conference that you really wanted me at.
They don't tell you a lot of interesting information in those, though.
No.
They are very skippable.
What I thought was interesting is he demands $100 million and all reasonable paid expenses, which I don't feel like they did in the book. He was just like, I'll figure that stuff out.
Oh yeah, the expenses came out of his end.
That part also feels weird to me because
it's a big old paper trail.
It's a huge paper trail. Am I giving you my expenses? Do I have to file the expenses?
It was 2 payments, one up front and one on completion.
Which I feel like
is he submitting them on a weekly basis?
Am I gonna send these in Jira? Do you need Concur? Like what's our payment program here? Are you gonna tax those?
How much would you want to murder one of our politicians? In American dollars.
This is probably selling out easy, but I would probably do it for $10 million.
10 million. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We got to rob a couple of banks.
But I don't think I would just do it for the money.
Do it for the lulz?
No, like I'm not going to be like, they're not going to be like, I'm going to need you to murder AOC for $10 million.
$10 million sounds great. And one red balloon.
But I mean, I'm gonna have to not like that politician. There's gonna be a little. I'm not enough of a professional.
Well, yeah, that's where you go wrong. You're not supposed to be emotional. If you're a contract killer, you can't
I'm
be
not.
emotional.
That's why I'm not a contract killer.
Okay, well.
As far as you know. One of my favorite lines of the first episode is she's talking, the hashtag good detective is talking to her hashtag boss, and they're in a meeting, and he says, "That seems like a lot of pre-planning," and she replies, "All planning is pre." Which I love, and especially I love the way she says it, because it's true, but also like, you're being an asshole. And the way he responds to her is also like, you're a huge dick. They immediately cut to a Spanish villa, which I believe is his home. And I believe this is his wife or girlfriend or something in his life. It looks like $100 million villa on its own.
It looked expensive.
It just makes me go, he's almost too successful already. Like,
they do euros over there, though.
Yeah, that's fair. But I feel like it's very clear in the book that the Jackal is comfortable, but he wants to like be done with having to make money. And I feel like if that's where you live, you're already kind of there. But yeah. That's all I got from that. The college girl cardiac arrest, whoopsie, is what I commented here, and I was just like, uh-oh. Because at first when it happens, I immediately go, oh, she's gonna be fine, because we found her this way, but she's like their vital signs are okay, and then she gets in the ambulance, and I imagine it's gonna be just a scary situation, but I think she might be dead, which we'll find out in episode 2. But I think that really fucks her contact. Like, the lady's not gonna talk to her now if that's what happened.
Well, we'll have to find that one out.
Because she has literally nothing to lose at this point, because she doesn't seem like she really loves her husband. Definitely doesn't love her brother-in-law, who is the person they're looking for. So I don't think that matters. I loved the end when the person says "fuck you," because he pauses. Eddie Redmayne pauses for a while and then just kind of like basically does a like he's not upset about it, and it makes me think that this is our replacement for the fortifier? What's the word? The
forger?
Forger. Thank you. This is what I hate about. Ooh. Well, this is what I hate. I have a problem where my vocab freezes, and it's super stressful when we're trying to talk, because I hate this. I don't want there to be a whole shit ton of dead air while I spend 5 minutes figuring out the word forge. That's when you find mushrooms.
In the woods.
I think this is our replacement for the forger, and I think the next episode, what we're gonna get a chunk of is, don't fuck with the Jackal. This is what happens when you don't pay for your contract. And I don't know if I wonder if he's gonna get his $2.5 million, or if he's just gonna get revenge out of it. But I think it might be a little bit of both. But I think he's definitely, the person is going to be very sad and very apologetic about not having paid him.
Yeah, in the book it was very obvious you do not double cross the Jackal. And then, in fact,
also, if you're not going to pay the $2.5 million, I don't know if my reply to them going, could you pay me my $2.5 million, is going to be, go fuck yourself. It's probably going to be silence.
To an assassin, yeah.
Or a lot of, oh, I'm sorry, like I had a medical emergency and now like we're not insured and I had to pay $2.5 million.
Or I'll meet you
at
the corner
treatments.
of 9th and Pine and you're up on the roof.
But I'm definitely not going full antagonistic and being like,
yeah.
Yeah. Comments now that I've re-summarized the episode and
that we nailed it, and that I definitely remember everything that you said, and I'm looking forward to episode 2.
Are you gonna rewatch episode 1 before we watch episode 2?
I lead a very busy life, so I'm gonna say maybe.
I think that's fair. I usually would not go back, especially because I know if we talked about it that you would probably fill in the gaps I had, and I would fill in the gaps you had. That episode, I felt the last 20 minutes was a big gap for me, and when I rewatched it, I went, "Oh, I remember this, but not." Also remember not remembering it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like
you were thinking
the scene happened.
You were dreaming on Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I was like,
Super Bowl.
oh, here we go. First off, I did not think they were going to the Super Bowl,
So
but I
you
did think
were
I was going to get 2
distracted
games.
like
I was
3
a little
times.
distracted. Yeah, that's it. We did a good job.
Nailed it.
We deserve it.